Hi everyone, it's John here.
And it's Lou, and welcome to our latest video. Today we're going to take you to the city of Portsmouth, located on the south coast of the UK.
Now, Portsmouth has a rich military and maritime history. It's located on a fantastic natural harbour, and its position on the south coast of the UK means it has one of the best climates in mainland England. But what does all that promise translate to in reality?
We've carried out loads of research so that we can make this video unbiased, interesting and factual. We'll tell you what you need to know to have an enjoyable break at this great waterfront city.
Interesting fact.
Really?
Portsmouth is the UK's only island city. It's compact and flat, which makes it ideal for visiting most of its sights and attractions on foot.
Over the next few minutes we're going to give you lots of information and tips about how to get here and get around the city, including where to park if you have a car.
Now, you may well be familiar with the UK climate, but just in case you're not, we'll give you some information about what weather to expect at different times of the year.
Oh, you're good. We'll give you some ideas about convenient areas to stay if you're looking for accommodation, and good areas to eat, including some of the main tourist tracks.
Above all, of course, we'll give you an overview of the attractions and sights in this historic part of the UK, and hopefully offer a few nuggets of advice to help that hard-earned cash go a little bit further.
And at the end of this video, we'll give you our honest opinions and views of what a trip to Portsmouth is really like, and how long to spend here to get the most of your trip.
And over the next few minutes, we're going to show you an overview of the Portsmouth area, where the location is, how to get there and how to get around, the climate across the year and when to go and when not to go, good areas to stay, good areas to choose to eat, and of course, above all else, we're going to show you the sights, attractions and areas of interest within Portsmouth. Portsmouth lies just over 70 miles southwest of London and just over 4.5 miles to the east of Ryde on the Isle of Wight. It sits on an island known as Portsea Island, separated from the mainland by narrow strips of water to the north, east and the west. Portsea Island is 4 miles north to the south and 3 miles east to west, and with a population of just over 250,000 people, it's the most densely populated city in the United Kingdom. The town of Gosport lies to the west of Portsmouth and Hayling Island lie to the east. There's regular foot passenger services connect Portsmouth with Gosport, and there is also a ferry service operating to Hayling Island. There are 3 road bridges connecting Portsea Island with the mainland, and 1 railway bridge. Numerous military vessels can be seen in the harbour, including quite often one of the UK's 2 aircraft carriers, HMS Queen Elizabeth and HMS Prince of Wales. There is still extensive evidence of its historical role in protecting the UK. At one point, Portsmouth was the most fortified city in Europe. The harbour is not just for military use though, it's shared by numerous commercial ferries and freight vessels, as well as private pleasure craft. Okay, so we do love our maps here on Independent Travel Reviews. Just in case you do too, here's a quick rundown of the Portsmouth area. So let's start with transport links. Now, if you arrive by car via the M275, then the first exit will be for the Park and Ride, which I'm going to talk about in a few moments. The next exit will be for the Continental Ferry Port for the ferries to France, Spain and the Channel Islands. The motorway then ends and you follow the signs for the White Link ferries or the tourist sites. If you're arriving by train, then the first station, main Portsmouth station you'll come across is Fratton, and that's where you'll like for Fratton Park. The next station is Portsmouth and Southsea, which is where the hover travel bus connects for the hovercraft. And then finally Portsmouth Harbour Station. Now that's right next to the Historic Dockyard, Gunwharf Quays, the Spinnaker Tower, the White Link ferries to the Isle of Wight, and it's also co-located with the Hard bus and coach interchange, where you can catch your National Express buses in and out of the city. Okay, we're going to talk about car parking in the city now. We're going to talk about 4 options. The first one being the park and ride. Now this option represents great value for money at £4 per car per day, including the bus transfer into the city, which takes about 11 minutes and operates every 15 minutes to the Hard, with additional services to Southsea at peak during peak holiday times. The downside of the park and ride is that it closes quite early at around 7:45 in the evening. Okay, so the second option that we're going to cover to leave your car in the city is to use one of the 3 multi-storey car parks close to the Dockyard and Gunwharf. Now these 3 are the Dockyard car park itself, the Wickham Street car park and Gunwharf's own underground car park. The rates for each car park for 2023 are shown on the screen now, along with the postcodes to put into your sat-nav for each one. It is worth noting that Gunwharf also offers a reduced rate for users of the View Cinema. If you get your car park ticket validated in the cinema foyer, then you pay just £2.10 for up to 4 hours of parking. So the next option in our car parking marathon is paid street parking. Some streets offer paid meter parking, including a few on the approach to Gunwharf via Queen Street and also all the way along the seafront in Southsea. Now rates vary by area, but if you really want to plan in that much detail, then rates for each area are shown on the City Council's website. You can pay at the meter or via the Ringo app. So finally I'll mention free on-street parking. Most of the roads around the Hard and Old Portsmouth and the seafront areas are a mixture of meter and residence parking. Residence parking areas often include an ability to park as a visitor for free for a restricted time. This is typically an hour around the Dockyard and Old Portsmouth, but in Southsea there are areas with more generous allowances ranging from 3 hours to most of the day, but with cunningly selected residents only time blocks. If you select your area carefully and are prepared for a 10 to 15 minute walk, then you can make use of these, especially when visiting the Southsea attractions, Albert Road and Palmerston Road.
Now you have arrived in Portsmouth and we're going to discuss how to get around. One option is to walk. We've told you it is very flat and compact. For example, it takes approximately 2.5 miles, just under an hour, to walk all the way from the Hard to South Parade Pier. However, if you're not keen on walking, then there are Voy e-scooters and Beryl bikes to rent. Another option is to catch a taxi. There are plenty of regular cabs as well as Uber, Bolt and Aquacars, which are all available via an app. Finally, you can also take the bus. Portsmouth has a good bus network, and if you plan to use the bus, you might want to consider a day pass. The Plus Bus ticket is available if you arrive by train. And don't forget, while you're navigating around the city, Google Maps is great for all forms of transport.
Okay, so the majority of the attractions are located in the southwestern corner of the city, so if you're looking for convenience, it does make a lot of sense to choose accommodation in that southwestern corner in the area that we show on the map, and there is a good choice of hotels and Airbnbs. Now, we did identify hotels in the Gosport area and also to the north of the city. Now these might be good options for you, but do just bear in mind the cost and time of commuting back into the city if your plan is to see the attractions in that southwestern corner. And finally, we also noticed that when we were doing our searches for hotels, some of the ones offered were actually on the Isle of Wight, which might not be as convenient. Okay, so if chain restaurants are your thing, then we'd recommend heading straight for Gunwharf Quays. We counted in the region of 35 outlets, ranging from the likes of Burger King and Costa Coffee all the way through to the higher end places like Carluccio's, Loch Fyne and Brasserie Blanc. Now if you venture outside Gunwharf, you'll find a fantastic selection of old and historic pubs on the Hard, in Old Portsmouth and in Southsea. We particularly liked Spice Island, where you can sit outside on a nice day and you get a great view of the comings and goings in Portsmouth Harbour. Okay, so if it's independent eateries that you're looking for, then you'll find a small number in Old Portsmouth and along the seafront at Southsea, but the majority are clustered around the Palmerston Road and Albert Road areas of Southsea. Of the ones that we tried, a Turkish restaurant called Agora in Southsea was our favourite.
About the sights and attractions for the next few minutes. We start with the Portsmouth Historic Dockyard, which is actually 6 attractions in one. Then there's Gunwharf Quays and the Spinnaker Tower, the Round Tower area, Southsea Seafront, the Bluereef Aquarium, the DDay story, Southsea Castle, the Natural History and Portsmouth Museums, the Canoe Lake area, Port Solent, and finally Fort Nelson. Now, in addition, there are a couple of other landmarks which we will mention at the end, and we'll also talk in more detail about visiting the Isle of Wight for a day trip.
Okay, so I'm going to first of all give you a quick summary of what the dockyard exhibits are. So there are 6 main ones and then 2 other attractions which will be of interest. So we'll start with the Mary Rose Museum, then we have HMS Victory, HMS Warrior, M33, the Submarine Museum, and then finally the Explosion Museum of Naval Firepower, which is where we're recording this from right now. In addition to that, there are 2 other attractions which will are worth of note, I suppose. One is called Action Stations, which is a kind of area with attractions mostly for kids, and the second one is the Harbour Tour, which is included in some of the ticketing. Now we're going to talk about the ticket pricing in just a moment, but I'm going to hand over to Lou now, who will tell you a little bit more about what we've seen and what her thoughts are on it.
We had been told that the Portsmouth Historic Dockyard was one of the main things to do and see in Portsmouth, and having now done it, completely agree. It totally exceeded my expectations. Even if you're not madly into ships or history or military, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And on top of the attractions, have to say the shopping was brilliant. The shops are so good, so many of them, and lots of different quirky things to buy, and lots of places to eat, and lots of extra kiosks, lots of ice cream, kept me happy. And yeah, I totally loved the harbour tour. The captain, who also does the commentary, was very enthusiastic, very entertaining, and we were really lucky that both aircraft carrier ships were in, and yeah, it just made a great trip.
Okay, so on the screen now you will see the pricing options. Now there are effectively 3 different options. We chose the Ultimate Explorer ticket, which is the ticket that gives you access for 12 months, so that's a full year, to all 6 of the main attractions plus action stations and equally importantly the harbour tour. Now we bought it by registering in advance for the newsletter, which gave us a discount, and we ended up paying £39 per adult, so that's £78 for the 2 of us, for a full year of unlimited access, which we thought was pretty good value for money. If you're a family, then you'll see the price for 3 adults and 2 children. Now that is discounted if you register in advance for the newsletter.
And also, if you have the blue light discount card, you get 30% off, which big saving. Yeah, my top three would be slightly different to my husband's. What a surprise, but only slightly. Yeah, top three, Mary Rose Museum. Really liked the way you went into the museum. Won't tell you much more because you'll want to go and do it. Secondly, the Victory. They gave you a free audio, and that was really easy to use and lots to listen to, and made it really interesting. And thirdly, probably my favourite was the Submarine Museum over in Gosport, and they have the volunteers are all ex-submariners, mainly who served on a similar type of boat, and they're very entertaining and they had great stories to tell. So yeah, they're my top three.
It was actually quite difficult to narrow down kind of three favourites, if you like, from the six main attractions. If I was to choose three, my personal three would be the Mary Rose, the Warrior and the Submarine Museum, but we so much enjoyed the harbour tour that it feels like it was sensible to also buy a ticket that includes that as well. The other thing to mention that I forgot to mention previously about the Ultimate Explorer ticket is that it also, not only does it give you access to the harbour tour, it also gives you access to this kind of free ferry that operates between the Portsmouth side and the Gosport side, because don't forget that on the Gosport side are two of the attractions. That's the Explosion Museum and the Submarine Museum, and you need to find a way of getting between the two, and that option, the ferry option, is free if you have the Ultimate Explorer ticket. Okay, so located adjacent to the Hard Interchange are Gunwharf Quays and the Spinnaker Tower. Gunwharf Quays advertises itself as an outdoor outlet shopping mall with over 90 brands of outlet shopping. It also has in its part of its complex a cinema, a bowling alley, a casino, and numerous bars, pubs and clubs, some of which have great views over the harbour. In addition to this, of course, it also has numerous restaurants and cafes, which we talked about earlier.
Located at the harbour entrance in Old Portsmouth and dates back to 1418. It is a beautiful spot to spend a couple of hours admiring the views or visiting one of the cafes and shops in the ramparts below. Hi, we're at the eastern part of Southsea now, and I've really enjoyed this bit. The sun's come out, so that makes me happy. And then we did spot some sand as well. So although I would have said it was all a stony beach, there are little pockets of sand that you can find up this part of Portsmouth. And then we wandered to the 10th Hole Cafe, which has got a reputation for having amazing cakes. And as you'll see, there was an amazing selection of cakes. And now we've ended up walking around to Canoe Lake. And yeah, lovely pleasant spot. And if you do have young kids, there's loads of amazing play areas all around, tons of stuff for them to do as well. So yeah, I've really enjoyed the eastern part of Southsea.
So Port Solent is a marina development in the northeastern part of Portsmouth Harbour. It consists of a cinema complex, a very nice boardwalk with restaurants and some shops, and there is free parking. It's about a 15-minute drive from central Portsmouth. So Fort Nelson is an old Palmerston fort on the top of Portsdown Hill. It now acts as a Royal Armouries museum. It's free to enter with free parking on the other side of the road. It's about a 25-minute drive from central Portsmouth, and while you're up here we'd recommend driving a mile or so to the east along the hill to see these great views. Okay, so there's a couple of other bits we feel we should mention. First of all, Portsmouth is home to two cathedrals. The Catholic Cathedral built in 1882, and then the Anglican Cathedral, which is shown here, which dates back to 1188. And then finally, a great quiz question answer this. Charles Dickens was born in the city of Portsmouth in 1809, and his birthplace is available to view as a museum on selected dates. You need to check the internet for when those are. Okay, so the last activity that we're going to review is a trip to the Isle of Wight. Now, Ryde on the Isle of Wight is only about 4.5 miles away, and it's a great spot for a day trip. It has an amazing beach, which is massive at low tide, lovely coastal walks, and it's a kind of quaint English seaside town. Okay, so there are 3 ferry options from Portsmouth to the Isle of Wight. The first one is the car ferry, which operates from a terminal right next to Gunwharf Quays. It takes about an hour, operates roughly every hour, but it does drop you in Fishbourne, which is about 3 miles from Ryde. Okay, so the second option is the Whitelink catamaran service. Now, Whitelink are the same company as operate the car ferry. Their catamaran though operates from a dedicated terminal which is within Portsmouth Harbour Station. The catamaran operates approximately every hour, takes about 15 minutes, but it does drop you at the top of Ryde Pier, which is about a 20-minute walk into the town. So the third and final option is the hovercraft. Now, this is the world's only passenger hovercraft service. It operates from Southsea Seafront into Ryde town. It's the most frequent. It operates roughly every half an hour, and it takes just under 10 minutes. It's not quite as convenient to get to. It operates on Southsea Seafront, but there is a bus service that operates from Portsmouth and Southsea Station to connect with the hovercraft. Okay, so our aim here at Independent Travel Reviews is to be genuinely unbiased. So here is what we thought of Portsmouth.
I had a great time in Portsmouth. There was tons to do and see, which is why this video is so long. So yes, I definitely recommend a visit to Portsmouth. To make the most of your tickets and your time, I would say you need 3 days, but you could definitely stay for longer.
Yeah, so I really like Portsmouth as well. I think it's quite underrated actually as a visitor attraction. It's a busy working city, but on the other hand, it's also got a great deal for visitors to do. And yes, I would be more than happy to come back here and recommend it as a place to visit. Okay, so good as Portsmouth is, I do have a couple of observations.
Here we go.
Thank you. So there's a couple of little things that occurred to me that perhaps were a slight annoyance. And so first of all, I was a little bit disappointed. The water bus which we talked about, that connects the Portsmouth with the Gosport Historic Dockyard sites. A couple of times we saw it fill up and people being turned away because they don't have enough capacity or they don't operate frequently enough, which seems to me to be a bit of a known goal, particularly in the peak times. My second observation is that the D-Day story is a really good attraction. It's really interesting, but it feels to me like it kind of fits naturally with the dockyard, with the military background, and yet it's dealt with very separately, and I would have liked to have seen the dockyard and the D-Day story tickets bundled together. Yeah, and my third observation is about the Spinnaker Tower. So yes, it was great. The views were fantastic, particularly because the day we went up it was really clear, but it struck me as being a little bit pricey. So it was best part of £30 for 2 adults, or it would have been just over £50 for a family of 4, which I think for what is in reality somewhere between a 30 and a 60-minute visit, I thought was a little bit on the steep side.
Okay, and finally, that's the end of this video. Well done if you're still watching. Obviously, if you like what you've seen, then please subscribe to our channel. We would welcome any constructive feedback that you've got. And we're planning lots more. In fact, the next one coming out is...
It's a bit more exotic than Portsmouth. Don't get me wrong, Portsmouth was great. Yeah. But the next one, we've just come back from a trip to Kenya and Tanzania, and we're going to have a 4-video series planned for that. We're going to report on the safari that we did and a great trip that we did in Tanzania. We're going to report on our kind of adventure, travelling from...
So watch the next ones and please subscribe.
Really?
Yeah, really. God.